happy to see all of you in the quest of happiness. When Jimmy talked about having an evening where we are going to discuss happiness, I was wondering how do you define first happiness? And you go to the Googles of this world and you'll find jargons around happiness, state of mind, state of bliss, state of whatever, mental well-being and so on and so forth. And then that needs to be now contextualized in the context of organizational happiness. To me, this is I won't say a misnomer, but a huge challenge. Purely because you can create frameworks. Happiness is completely an individual affair. I don't think I can club 10 people together and say they're all 10 happy. To me, it's a very, very individual affair. Now, I'll just tell you a kind of an example. I was working earlier in one of the large Indian conglomerate. They had large ITS business, and every month or every quarter in the review, attrition figures used to come on top. And we had meetings, on-site meetings, so on and so forth. So one of the suggestions from the floor manager that came was, why don't you give us some allowance by which each team member can take his team out over the weekend for a drink or, games and so on and so forth. So we're very, very happy that hopefully this kind of reduces the attrition by making people happy as they go out, spend time with their buddies, spend time with their managers, chill down, and so on and so forth. It happened for a couple of quarters, and good amount of money was given each to each team manager. Figures started showing no downward trend at all. We still were looking at the similar numbers. In fact, one of the third quarter number went high. So I went to on the site, this was out of Bangalore, and spent a couple of days working through the shifts at night. And one of the night, I met a young girl, and she had apparently resigned that day. And I asked her, so how long have you been working? She says 1.5 years. So I said, so why are you looking at moving out? She said, listen, couple of things. And she was very frank. First of all, she said, look what I'm wearing. She was wearing spaghetti and jeans. My boss feels this is not the right dress to come to work. I'm talking about 2004 and 5. We were still outdated in terms of our mindset. And then I realized that the bosses who were hired into this new business or industry called ITS came from traditional organizations. They were homegrown managers in Crompton Greaves, L&T, and Siemens, and they had only seen very formal clothes at the work. And here you are, a 19-year-old kid being supervised by an ancient manager, trying to superimpose his worldview on the worldview of the kid. And obviously they were divergent and they were not meeting. Then I said, but aren't you happy now that the new things we have introduced in terms of your boss taking you out on the weekends for a drink or games and so on and so forth? So she gave a very cynical smile and she said, happiness? Come on. For some people, having a beer may be happiness. For me, it is not. It's just a mere pleasure for me. And I think it was very, very deep meaning that personally I discovered that pleasure and happiness are completely different. And most of the time in organizations, we're creating an opportunities to have pleasure, give pleasure to employees, implying that may create happiness. But it doesn't happen unless you probably institutionalize what RPG has done. And therefore, to me, happiness is a kind of a framework in my own mind which rest on a tripod. When you have happiness, which is a state of mind of well-being, of fulfilledness or bliss, or whatever you describe it as, I'm not taking my head out by defining it. But to me, happiness is preceded by abundance mindset. If you have abundance mindset as the fulcrum of your worldview, probably you are more likely to be happier than otherwise. And when I say abundance, as in there is enough in the world for everyone, and therefore there is no need to compete, there is no need to hurry to grab my share. Abundance in real sense means there is enough and more opportunities. I'll again like to give this as an example. People of my vintage, unfortunately, were born with scarcity as mindset. When we were born, it was an era of ration, it was an era of control, it was an era of limited resources. So even if my father was well-to-do in life, we had to still wait for 7 days for a cooking gas cylinder to be delivered at home. We had to wait in the ration queue to get 500 grams of sugar per family member, because that's what you are allowed in terms of quota. With this kind of growing up, forget about telephones taking 5 years to even landline to be installed at your place. With this kind of growing up, all of us, most of us, became scarcity-minded people. And when we went to work, we carried that there. And then in 91, 92, we adopted market economy as a way of governance in our country. And suddenly we realized that we became part of the global world, and the generations born thereafter is seeing everything that one was not seeing even in a refrigerator. We had to, every Dubai flight that came with the TV. Every Dubai flight which came with some terrific chocolates and so on and so forth was available here. The gen that came to work after that particular event in our history, we are finding that these guys are born with abundance as mindset, because they realize that there is enough and more available. I don't have to store anything for tomorrow, because there is enough and more supply available around of everything else. And mind you, there was a salutary impact of socio-economic circumstances on the human being's psychology. And this led to creating of a new generation who now believes, unlike generation of mine, it believes that there is enough and more for everyone in the world, and therefore the world is a better place to live than that we thought it wasn't so great place to live. Example of abundance and scarcity mindset. Even today, if I get a new shirt given to me by my wife on my anniversary, my immediate response is, oh, Diwali is around the corner, I'll remove it when Diwali comes. I give a gift to my daughter or a dress to my daughter. In a fraction of a moment, she's changed it. She's saying, I'm going out, give me $1,000, want to celebrate with my friends. Now this keeping it close to my heart for a better tomorrow versus there is enough in the world are two of the loudest examples of abundance mindset. And I think abundance mindset of having enough in the world, and therefore I don't have to be unhappy, or I don't have to be competing with somebody else in my own mind, is for me fulcrum of creating happiness. Now to leading into the abundance, if you go a step backward, then you have to develop attitude of gratitude. If you are able to develop gratitude again as your worldview on all your human transactions, because gratitude acknowledges person who's outside of you. Your work, your family, your friends, whatever. The gratitude brings in the acknowledgement of somebody is doing good to you, somebody is doing is meaning well for you. The gratitude for me builds in the abundance mindset, and that abundance mindset leads to happy and fulfilling life. Organizations will understand this, will have to understand this, and therefore creating frameworks that are useful. Most of the time in organizational context, we chase outcomes after they have happened and then try to derive meanings out of those actions, thinking that those actions will help you to prevent something else. For example, exit interviews. Exit interviews happen in the organization when the person has decided to leave the organization. At that stage, if you capture his inputs as to why you resigned, that man is in the framework of getting released from the organization. Do you think at that stage he anyway going to talk about anything in terms of organizational context which is truthful? No. His first in his mind is, yaar, mere ko HR full and final settlement de de. Then you are capturing that reason and creating policies and framework to support and address that reason, and the reason continues to exist because you are not getting the actual reason. Most of the time people will say salary zyada mil raha hai wahan pe, or I am relocating to this place because my parents are there, they are very old and I am going to stay with them, and so on and so forth. So externalizing something which is so actually not the truth, because the day he decided to leave was the day which was probably 6 months before we actually decided to leave. And that could have been anything that could have triggered his resignation. It could be related to culture, it could be related to interaction with his manager, whatever was that reason. And as we know the famous adage, people join organizations and leave their bosses. You are now tracking the outcome which is on the 6th month of last 15 days of his departure and saying, what are you? Why are you not staying back with us? Why don't you do something? One of the organizations we started doing this exactly reverse. Attrition is here to stay. There are people who are not going to be happy with you and they will leave. But why are you tracking them? Why don't you track the 90% or 80% who are staying back with you? And do stay back interviews. Ask people why they are staying with you, why they like the way you are. And probably you'll get so many insights from them. And if you do more of things that come out of those insights, probably will help the next 20% who are going out. So I think you need to kind of think out of the box in terms of doing anything in context with the organizational happiness framework. So I'm going to kind of stop here, because to me, the tripod of happiness, abundance and gratitude is the fulcrum for individual happiness. And to me, individual happiness, delta of that is the organizational happiness. And therefore, if you create culture which fosters individual happiness, helps people develop gratitude mindset, abundance mindset, probably will lead to happy employees in your organization. And believe you me, happiness also can be transient in nature. And therefore, just because I am happy in the organization today does not guarantee that I'll be happy tomorrow. And therefore, again, to my favorite, which is invest in person as a whole human being than fractionalizing him as employee versus an individual outside organization. And if you attack a kind of person in the whole being way, there is a better chance of you creating happiness and happy workplace. Thank you very much.